and sponsors. Yeah, René, for example, from Ostech is here. Yeah, Ujami wanted to be here today, but it isn't, I think. Yeah, and if you want to know anything about us, you can go to our website. There you will also always find the next meetup and also, of course, all the past meetups, including the links to the videos if we have recorded them. And also, we try to upload slides or link slides of the talks if available. We also have an event calendar as a subscription for your Google Calendar, for example. Yeah, and there you will find all announcements. And if you want to do a talk for yourself at the user group, you will find a blue button on the website which will lead you to our GitHub page. There you can add an issue, and we will ask you some questions in the issue template. And if you want to do the talk, so we need just a topic and a short description, and you can also do the talk with someone else. If you are a first-time speaker, we can also review your talk before you hold it at the user group. So you just have to do it, and we, of course, encourage you to do it, so that we don't have the same people here all the time. And of course, if you have seen other talks, other speakers somewhere around in Germany or wherever, you can also tell us who you want to see here, or that you are interested in a certain topic, so we can go fishing for speakers and the right talks. Yes, we are also a legal entity, and you can become a member. Yeah, so there's a Mitgliedsantrag that you can download on our website for only 12 euros per year, so €1 per month, and then you will get some access to closed content like videos, books, ebooks, and slides. We also give you free attendance to workshops that we are organizing ourselves, and most of the time we also have discounts on conference tickets in Germany, so because most of the conferences give discounts to the user groups. So if you're interested in this, just fill out this little form, and we will never let you go again. All right, and last but not least, thank you, Seventhings, for hosting us today, and the food and the drinks. And yeah, so we have a little break, and then Ralf will start over. After the talk, there's also the possibility to have a walk around in the new building of Seventhings, so you can see your future workspace. You know? All right. Have fun today.
Thanks, Holger. Thanks for coming to our meetup. I have the pleasure today to make the host intro. So I'm working for Seventhings, formerly Itexia. I will give a short overview of what we are doing and what we are working with, because we are all PHP developers, and we are working mainly in PHP. So I want to give an overview. What's our idea not only with our software, also to make the work better. And so I invite you. This is my, so seventhings is a company which offers a software as a service to customers. We are developing mainly a asset manager. It's called the Asset Manager for Successful Companies. So the idea is that as a company, you get for each furniture computer, you get a sticker, you put it on, and you can track your assets over your company. So the idea is to have a digital twin of these assets on a platform, and then you can digitize it, you can integrate it in your workflows, and with standardized tools, the idea is to share the information about the assets through the companies and through other platforms. And the product family mainly is a G application, which is a bit old, and we are trying now as a development team to migrate this G application step by step to an API with a front end. So we are using Slim API and the React front end for this. So we are migrating slowly this application. Also we have, of course, apps, iOS apps, Android apps, to track your assets around the world and around your office. And also we are developing a lot of internal tools for our CSM team, for our sales team, to print the tickets, the etiquettes, and everything, right? So, but this application is used by a lot of customers, and they are very happy with this, and this is the main product which we are selling. But also we have a big vision, and this vision is kind of very interesting also for the future, and also for some kind of sustainability. Our idea is circular inventory management. So what is the idea? If the product, the software, is knowing, or if you can track with the software your assets, you not only track the place where the assets are, you can track a lot of other information. So how is it used? What kind of materials does it have? How long is in the company? So with this information, you can do a lot of stuff. And so that once you track your assets, and you have the overview of your assets in the different rooms, in the different places and offices, so you can, not only this, you can enhance the information of these assets with different information. You have the manufacturers, you have the materials, you can, how much is it used, and the footprints. And then you have a very easy possibility to return it into the cycle. So you can recycle the materials, you can give it back to the manufacturer that they can reuse it. Also, a good idea is to donate it. So you share it on the same platform, and you can say, okay, take it and give it for a good place, to a second life, to reuse it. And or new one, this is great. We have it in our office platform now. You can support your employees. So you put it on your website, and the employees can say, "Hey, great! I like this. I will take it for a smaller price than bought." So the companies can save a lot of money because they don't have to recycle it, and give it to a good place. As we are all developers, it's always interesting what we are using, which software stack, and I put everything what I found. What you're using, so but it's interesting. I've tried to cluster this a little bit, because the last slide from Steve some month ago, there was missing the front-end part. So I put the front-end part and clustered the rest of it. So interesting is here, the left side is everything PHP, right? So we have Xdebug, we have PHP, PHPUnit, Conception, Composer, Symfony, and the frameworks, Symfony, G2, and Slim. And then it comes, very interesting, over the API specification, Swagger, OpenAPI. No. Mo. Henry. Yes. No. So, but I can proceed talking because I have a lot of. No, but this is. Ich zieh mal raus. Jetzt, das geht? Nee, das geht nicht. Das ist plus Auto. Hast du das Bild? Ah, so OpenAPI. So OpenAPI specification, and then we are coming to the front-end part, which we're using the React universe, right? You are using. No, I think this is the problem here. Hier geht's wieder. Nein. Ah, hier, da hast du es doch eins, oder? Jetzt gibst du mir das mal rüber. Jetzt. The React universe, so we are using React TypeScript in the front end with all these NPM, Node, Jest, and we are using the CSS framework which is called Semantic UI, where I'm very happy with it. And in the lower part of this presentation is all the tools we are using every day as developers, and you are using the similar or the same things as GitLab, PHP Store, Sentry, all this stuff. But putting all these logos to a slide, it's kind of crazy what we are using all the day. And everybody knows it. As we can talk about, I think about Composer, we can talk all the night, I think, with you, right? So this is, and with each topic we can talk about it. Okay. But who we are, the company where we're working in, it's kind of, we are a company now, we are growing a lot. When I started 2 years ago, we've been 12 persons, I think, 13. Now we are 45. We are located in 5 countries. In 5 countries, 4 countries, and Jan is in Portugal, okay. But he worked 2 weeks in Portugal now. So this is a very interesting opportunity to say, okay, no problem, I can work remotely. We have 3 units. I'm working in the unit product, which are 16 makers, and that are 4 backend developers, which are mainly using PHP, 2 front-end with the React stuff, 1 mobile and 2 DevOps. And the rest is all the guys who are making the product great. So this is POs, Henry is the boss of it, and everything, right? And you see, we have a lot of fun. Once a year, in the beginning of the year, we are going 2, 3, 4 days to how is it called? Offsite, where we are planning the year, and these are all the images are from the offsite this year in January. It was a great, were great 3 days with workshops, and yes, I have a list. What's great in our company, but before. Yeah, we are hiring. Okay, I know. I don't know if you know, but we are hiring, and we are looking for PHP developers, senior developers. I don't know, software developers is not a senior developer, and software architect. And these are the great things that we have. Today at lunch, I asked the guys on the table what they like at the company. So I have this. So we have the office of the best coffee in Dresden, I think. This is from Phoenix Coffees. We have the best after-work parties with our own barman. Flex desks, flexible work and our remote work is, of course, is normal. Hardware, I think it's normal too for a lot of companies. We are doing real Scrum. And a lot of companies saying they are doing Scrum, but they don't do Scrum. I think we are trying to do the best to get the real Scrum. And I like it a lot that we have a training budget. So, and they are asking us every month, hey, you have to spend your training budget. You have to put your training budget. And I haven't spent it this year already, but I have to hurry a bit. But this is great that they remind me, they have to remind me that I have a training budget and I have to spend it, please. So I think that's all. If it did not convince you to work with us, so we can talk later. And that was the host intro. Asked me, hey Ralf, I want to do a talk about software architecture tests. Ah, great, I thought I'm with you because I have a great tool. I said to him, the tool is called PHP Arc. Aha, I have another tool. So, and then we looked up how many tools there are. I think everybody is developing a tool to test PHP architecture. I think so, it's kind of 7 tools. But at the same time, it's not very, I don't know, it's not very common. Anybody of you are using PHP architecture testing tools? 1, 2, 3, 2, okay. That's great, because there was, for me, a year ago, it was not so common, right? So I did not know it. So, but I want to share the story how we came to this, and I want to share the story why we need this and what we are doing. So it's more an architecture talk than an architecture testing talk, but the last 2 slides are architecture testing. So this is me, I'm Ralf. I'm PHP TypeScript developer. More I'm in fire with TypeScript than lately, because I think it's great. It's great. So, and I love software architecture and all related stuff. I came to domain-driven design in my last project in the university. And testing and CI was always this thing to make your life easier. It's the testing, CI, you forget your problems because you have tests. So, I take on seventhings. We have this G2 application, which is kind of huge. And we had this issue that we wanted to develop features fast. And we always stuck in stuff with G2. And because G2 is not, it has another approach and has another idea and has another use case than the software which we are doing. It's great, it's working great, and it's okay, but to develop feature really fast, we need another approach. So, and we decided that we have to change something. So we decided to try an API and React. I came with the idea with React because I have worked a lot before in my last project with this. So we needed a React frontend and a slim, or an API which is slim, I think the most minimalistic approach. So, and for this, somehow we said, okay, we need to choose your weapons. And we choose 2 weapons. One weapon was Holger. I think the pump gun of the weapons. And he brought another weapon, which is a book, or at least everything from Carola Lienthal you can read, and you can look a lot and watch a lot of YouTube stuff from her in the talks, because she's a very great software architect and very empathic. So with this book and with all her experience, we used the book. She was not as a consultant here, but we used the book, and we took her ideas a lot to bring into this transition, in this migration to Slim, to the API and frontend. So our approach was most of all hexagonal architecture. Who is using it? Who's aware of this? Who knows? Who does not know? Okay. So the approach
model, you have in the center your domain layer, so you have there your rules, domain
design, you have your rules there, and around the domain layer you have an application layer which is connecting everything. And around there on the left side you have the primary data. It's called the presentation layer, which is API, web, CLI. So the information comes from the left, goes through the application layer and connected to the domain layer, and then on the right side you have the secondary adapters or ports and adapters, which are everything which is storage and external systems, right? So this is the idea. So you go in, connect, go through this hexagon on the right side and more or less coming back. Also, we used CQRS, which is a separating read and write model. So you can make a GET request to the API, you get your information, and you change something like a POST request, which is from a POST request always a request. Have an async system. This approach. And this was the idea to say, hey, let's try to migrate the system. You go on Sunday, go to the streets and you see a can.
And it goes there. You go to the stone and you throw it another way. And so it's like you go step by step to the final system, but always like Scrum, and I like Scrum a lot for this approach, that you say, oh, you can release always. We don't build new. We release every 2 weeks a new system or a new version. So with another module, with another approach. So we tried to have different modules, domain-driven design, that you say, okay, we have, for example, a user module, a message module, like our system is working, and these modules are separated horizontally, and vertically we have this technical layering. So we say, okay, we have the presentation layer, the application layer domain, and infrastructure layer, and we only can connect from the presentation to the application, and the presentation layer cannot connect to the domain layer. Here's the architecture stuff, and here we need this tests, right? We don't want to access the presentation layer to the domain layer. We want this approach, right? So the idea of a migration from the module in our case was, let's say we take one page. We have one page in our G application, which is a message page. Message page means here, okay, the user gets the message that something happened. And this is one page, and this is by user, so we could take this message module, take the whole page, bring it to the new application, to the REST application, to REST API, and then make all the test stuff. So take it from the G application to the new one and migrate. And the idea was this always the same approach. We say, okay, we create the API spec, we create the module, we are developing our API and our front end. So with the API specification once done, everybody can work. We have fake servers in the front end. And on the back end, we are implementing it, and then we can migrate messages and make it use. So when you deploy the new version, these message pages is kind of a React application. One by page, and then one time when every page is migrated to a new system, we have one application. So we take the page into a new application. So I will make it short. I have a lot of slides. I think I will make it shorter. But here, this is a very interesting slide because it shows you the main part, of course, not the classes, but the main parts where is what, right? So we have in the presentation there our request handlers. So we have our get handlers and our post request handlers, and we can separate write and read side. And these are going, if you have a get request handler, there are command buses and query buses, which are in the application layer, which are injected into the request handler. So if I make a post request, I'm creating a command, throwing it to the command bus, then in the command handler, there is happening the real magic. In the command handler, at least in our architecture, we have all the logic there. We are injecting our domain rules and say, okay, is it possible to create a message for this user? Everything there. And once everything is fine, all the information is stored to the infrastructure layer post. These are database, event stores, everything what's there. And in the last step, or the infrastructure layer event systems like this are doing the projections in the projector. So we are doing event sourcing. So we have always command bus, query bus, and the event system, right? We have these event stores, projectors, recorders, and all this stuff. And on the file system level, we try to name it. For each module, we try to name it as it was in the layers, right? We have application, domain, exceptions. Okay, exceptions is for the module, infrastructure and presentation, where we are separating here, so here I am web, and put all our request handlers there. In the Slim application, we are using the Slim dependency injection container, where we are wiring the adapters with the ports, and we are using only ports. Ports in this case are interfaces, and adapters are the implementations. The ports are always used in our main application, and the adapters, which are the implementation of the interfaces, are wired through the dependency injection container. Okay, this is the bigger one. I don't want to talk a lot of this. It's the same one, but with all these small baby steps. I think we can, if you have questions, we can talk about this later. You see here that the infrastructure has a lot of stuff where I can access to. But now once these architecture rules, because we have rules here, which can depend on what and how it's going and how it's connected. Now we have the rules, and now once you have the rules, we can define the rules with the kind of architecture testing tool, and then check if the rules are fulfilled. For this, we are used DebTrack, or we are using DebTrack. And DebTrack is kind of the tractor of architecture testing tools. You can do everything with it. It's slow, it's not very comfortable, but you can do everything. And the idea of DebTrack is that it's a PHP library. You can install by Composer or a FAR file, and it's easy to use. You only put PHP DebTrack analyze. It's easy. You have to configure your architecture, of course, because nobody knows what's the best architecture, so you have to define it by yourself. And this is kind of interesting. You are defining layers in your application. Here is it easy in this example. This is a DebTrack example from the documentation page. It's okay. I have different software layers, which is one is controllers, and one is repositories, and one is servers. And I know, and then you have the rule set, yes. Controller can access to service, and service can access to a repository, and repository can access nothing. And when these rules are violated, you have a message, then you run it and say, okay, this is kind of not working because, I don't know, some controller is not depending on something, right? And you have violations, and this is automatically works because it gets all your files from your source code and it checks everything. But now we started to implement this for our code base. And this was like, how many layers we have for one module? These are 20 layers for one module. And sometimes the modules are connected in between, right? So you have user module needs a message module, something like this, right? So this is a part of it. It's 200 lines of YAML file where you define your collector. So you say directory is command blah blah blah, and then you have your rules that you say message read presentation layer can access to something. This is the whole message YAML. But we have 14 modules at the moment, and I think it will be 30, 50, I don't know. And at the moment we have 1,850 lines of code, only depth track configuration. And it's not very easy to have the overview about this. So this is kind of a small critique, right? But I want to say what it helps us a lot. Yeah, the depth track is a great tool to get architecture tests done. It works great. It's standalone. It has a very stable code base. It, from these tools are the most stars of it. Big community, and you get help where you want. And you can visualize it. We do not use it, but you can if you want. But there are some things who could be better. Sorry for this depth track. It's YAML. Nobody wants YAML. It's hard to read. You have no templating, you have no inheritance, you have nothing. There's so much configuration, I don't know, I think there are a lot of mistakes in our modules. Because 1,800 lines of code, how? And then you have a violation and you say, what the fuck, why is this violation? And you're parsing through this 1,800 lines of code to try why it's getting this. The worst thing is, you are creating a new class which is not in the naming convention of your regex, and you say, there's one violation, no, there's one uncovered file. And you say, oh, uncovered file, what now? And you have to add the file to a layer. If you have files which are not covered in the layer, you have violations. It's not a violation, it's an uncovered file, but you don't want to have uncovered files. Because if you have 1,300 uncovered files, and in the next time it's 1,301, you don't get it, right? So we had to write a script to grab all that we have log files, and then we grab it. It's kind of a baseline, but there is no baseline. There's no baseline. I hate there's no baseline. And so we have to write our baseline file by our own, grabbing some logs, and this is not the best. And it's slow. Yep, it's slow. I think for our code base, it's taking a minute, something. So we are making all these tests before pushing the code. So every time I push the code, I have to wait. So I can drink coffee. So okay, that's all. I think I'm ready with my talk. If you have questions, I think now or later? Now? Do you have questions? No, great. Thanks. One question, Henry.
Do we have any alternatives for this? If a list of...
Thank you, Harry. Very good question, Henry. Thank you. Yes, Gerd will have a talk now about all the alternatives. And that's the idea. Gerd. Soll ich das so machen? Ist das so da hier? Achso, jetzt ist das hier. Aber jetzt kann ich natürlich das Ding hier. Genau. Einfach 11.
Ralf, do we want to make a short break so everybody?
Yes, I think so. 5 minutes? Yeah,
So everybody can refill his glasses.
Yes, thanks. Ja. Ich bin hier so, ich kann es auch machen. Achso, du musst mir das nochmal erklären jetzt.
Du lässt einfach alles
Genau. Das mag ich. Ich hab ein Handy.
Das war echt super, dass du die ganze Zeit links so ein hattest und wirklich dein Gesicht da links hinten hatten. Achso, den gleich, das stimmt. Das war die Überschrift, die war mit dem. Ja. Diese Mac. F11 drücken. Vollbild.
Das ist schon voll gut.
Was?
Oder unten gibt es auch eine.
Ah, ja. Ah, okay. Oder so. All right. Yeah, as you heard from Ralf already, I'm going to talk about an alternative today, how to test application architecture. And I just want to mention that I proudly made this presentation with a tool called MARP. You can access it there, it's open source, and it's really neat. If you like Markdown, then you can just write a Markdown and it will make a presentation out of it without any big additional syntax, just some lines to separate the slides from each other. And it was fun and easy, so yeah, I can really recommend it. Really short introduction about me. I'm working currently at Digistore24 and I'm stuck with PHP since 2006. I tried many other languages, but I kind of love PHP and that's why I stick to it. And yeah, and especially fell in love over time in static code analysis and especially in enforcing coding rules with tools instead of writing them down. And that's one of the reasons how it started for me using PHPat. I was looking for a tool to test the architecture of our application because we started 3.5 years ago on a green field without anything, and over time we got a big application and I wanted to document how our architecture looks like. And then I thought there should be a tool for it, right? It shouldn't be just a document, it should be something that I can enforce and don't have to teach people. It will fail in a pipeline and will tell the developer. So I was looking for tools there, and then I came to the tool that Ralf mentioned, and I saw a very big YAML file at the beginning, and I don't like YAML too much, and generally it was just a lot of effort for me to understand it, to write my first test with it. So I thought, okay, maybe I look for alternatives. And that's, and now I'm going to show you the list. So first there was StepTrack. As I mentioned, a bit complicated for me. I wanted to look for something really simple. Then the next big candidate was PHPat. And of course there are many others, as Ralf mentioned, like some people just wrote the same thing but named it differently, but there's also some interesting concepts like PHP Architect, PHP Arch or No Color. Each of them have very interesting ways of doing it as well. Some are more focused on performance, others are more focused on having a different visualization or representation. So I can also recommend check these alternatives out, but today I'm going to talk about PHPat because I'm stuck with it because it really suited my use cases. So why use PHPat? First of all, it's really easy to get started with. It takes like 5 minutes and you have your first test. And it's really simple to read because it uses PHP and the style is in a builder pattern and it looks like a normal unit test. So yeah, on the other side, a big benefit also was because we introduced these architecture tests very late in the project. We already had some mistakes in the project which are not perfectly to these rules, and we don't want to have red pipelines all the time, so a baseline was very important for us to stop continuing introducing more issues, but live with the ones that we have currently and get started with it. So I want to also mention why it's good to use StepTrack. Compared to PHPAT, PHPAT is in beta state at the moment, but DebTrack is in a stable state and is used by a big community, so if you have issues, probably you will get more help. And of course, it also has visualization, so this is what I'm really missing with PHPAT, because it's, if the application grows bigger, it's nice to also have this as a visualization. Let's start with the installation. A few months ago, it was integrated into PHPStan. So if you have PHPStan, it's pretty simple for you and you're familiar with the Neon file. But this is just a minimal install. You install PHPStan and PHPAT, and then you create your Neon file. This is specific to PHPStan, what it checks and with which level. And then we also want to include this extension, this PHPAT extension, and this down here is our first test that we want to include. Now let's talk about the, now that we are set up, let's talk about the building blocks that we have to write our first architecture test. First of all, we have selectors. First, we want to select which classes or interfaces we want to work with and test. And then, basically, we do assertions on it, and the assertions also use selectors. So, let's first look at the selectors that we have. It's pretty straightforward that we can use typically the class name. We can write it also as a string, and also use regex, and regex comes really in handy if you have a lot of classes. So this is just the basic regex. So first we can select classes, namespaces or interfaces, then also abstract or final, then we can also select classes that implement another class or extend another class. We also have the new feature from PHP8, which is the enums that we can select already. And this selector is kind of counterintuitive first. It selects just all classes and all interfaces and everything, but I'm going to show you why it's important soon. But let's look at the assertions. The list is also not so long. We can check for it should or should not extend, it should implement or not implement an interface, and also very useful is it should construct something. And there's one special one which comes in handy as well, which is should not depend. It's not so obvious what it means, so I'm showing here an example which cases it checks. First of all, if it extends or implements something, then if I use it in a property, if I use it in a parameter, or if I use it, or if I construct it in my implementation. Let's create an example test. So down here we have our class, which is not how it should look like. So we want to have a failing test here. We can see the foo class uses the bar class extensively everywhere. So we're gonna want to make sure that the foo class is not using the bar class. So we select it here. We say it shouldn't depend on the bar class. Pretty straightforward. We're gonna start testing now, and this is the output we get. As you can see, these are the cases that I mentioned before. You see what exactly is wrong, and it shows you an error. So, because we already written that code and we don't have time at the moment to fix it, but we still want to enforce it for new code, we introduce the baseline. Also pretty simple, we analyze again and generate the baseline, which means it will create a file which is called PHPStan baseline with all the errors that currently exist. We're gonna check it into the repository, so the baseline will be used by other developers as well, it will not fail there. And we just have to include it in our PHPStan Neon file. And now, if we run it again, we don't have any errors. It's nice to get started with it in a legacy project now that we see if there are more issues and not the existing ones. but of course we want to fix the old ones as well, but maybe we don't have the time or chance right now to do it now. Let's talk about the use cases that we have. I wanted to really show some simple examples, and then also a very weird example in our legacy code that we have, why it was so important for us with the baseline. So a very common one is we have our domain logic, and we want to enforce that the domain logic cannot use anything outside of the domain logic, and everything outside can access the domain logic. So again, we just select the namespace. Let's say all our domain logic is in one namespace. That's already a good start. And it's under app domain. And we say it shouldn't depend on all classes. And that's where it comes in handy to use the all selector, excluding the namespace itself. And that's why there exists this all selector, because we can do a wide list due to that. Another example, which is typical in Symfony, for that you have one namespace where you have your commands, and we want to make sure that every class which is in there is really a command. So again, we say it should we select our app command namespace, and we say it should extend the command interface. So now we can make sure it really uses the command interface, and we don't have any classes which are not really commands, or use maybe by accident some special command class which is low in the hierarchy. Some example I kind of reused from the PHPat repository itself. You can see there are more use cases, but I wanted to show you this one because he doesn't provide example code, but I wanted to write that example and show it to you. So the idea is here that nothing, either the model or the view, should depend on the controller, and then the model shouldn't use the view, and the view shouldn't use the model. But what we don't want to do is define it for every class, but we want to define it over all of them. So we use the regex here. So we can basically say that here either view or model shouldn't use the controller. It's a pretty simple regex, and we do the same here. Everything which is under view shouldn't use the model, and vice versa. Yeah, here I made it simple that everything under view is in app view is probably a view, but you can use different varieties, for example, that you have an interface or something like this. But as you can see, the regex makes it really flexible to test your architecture. And now the use case that we had. So I come from we have a CodeIgniter 1 point something version, which is very, very old and was not updated, and it was extended heavily, especially the models. But over more than 6 years, a single developer working on it, there is a lot of depth and a lot of classes which shouldn't be used anymore. So I'm gonna show you how it looks. So this is the hierarchy. Basically, everything is just extending up until some point. And what he told us is, okay, we want to get rid of maybe this model and this model, so don't extend this one, but the log model you can use. So yeah, very hard to understand as a developer by just looking at it. It is just something that is in the head of someone. So for me, it was very important that we have an architecture test there, so I don't have to explain it to every single developer, but it's clear to everyone because the tests are failing in the pipeline. So for me, it was, it looks like this. It's just an example. Of course, it looks a little bit different in reality. So what we say here is we want to first of all select all classes, excluding the models that already use the specific class but shouldn't. but they are allowed because they're very, very old. And we say it shouldn't extend one of these classes. We can make sure that all other classes don't do it, excluding these. This was one of our use cases. Another use case I wanted to share, but which is not possible at the moment, but I wanted to share this case. So everyone who is familiar with doctrine knows it's not so great to have entities extending from other entities. So the use case we had was most of our entities had either created at and created by, or modified at and modified by. So we decided to, instead of copy-pasting the code, use traits. And of course, we also had an interface which listens on, we had a subscriber which listens to all the class entity changes which implement that modified by interface. But now we need to make sure that the modified by interface class that implements it uses the trait instead of copy-pasting. So that was the case. We could, back then with the version 0.9, we could test also with traits, but unfortunately that's not in there anymore. But I'm pushing right now that it comes back, so hopefully if you use traits, PHPAT will be usable again with traits again. So let me wrap up really quick. As you could see, PHPAT is really simple to enforce architectural decisions, and you can start also with failing tests, which is good. You have a baseline, you can define it, especially if you're beginning of architecture tests, probably you also have a wish list and not only a done list. And also, what I want to share is architecture is different in every project. So probably your tests will look different, but it's important to have some. Thank you so far for listening. If there are any questions, I'm open to that. And I also want to tell you that it's available on GitHub, my talk, and also an example project with a simple makefile where you can play around with PHPAT a little bit. So everything you saw today, you can test out there very easily. Any questions?
So these tests are written in one big file, or can you separate it by file? Or?
So you can separate into as many files as you want. The only thing is you have to extend the neon file then. But you can organize it pretty easily.
Sounds great.
So it's not that you say like a composer file that say in this namespace are all my tests.
Unfortunately not. Maybe if there's some PHP Stan Pro, maybe he knows how to do it, but I tried it but couldn't find a way. But I guess that maybe there's an option, but I couldn't find one.
On the other hand, you could create an own neon file with all the tests in it, and you can include it in your PHP Stan. Because PHP Stan can include files.
Yeah, that's true. Nice. That would make the very much smaller than that. That's better.
And there was one slide where you test for an interface of the commands.
Make use cases and
here. And it says should extend. Shouldn't it be should implement?
Yeah, it should be. Right. It should implement.
Okay, and to make this test, you have to extend the class, or is it just a plain class?
It's just a plain class.
Okay.
So the plain class you register there, and it calls all the, as I saw, all the public methods in there. Yeah, I also omitted the use here because it was very long then, but yeah.
So if you have, just for organizing, when you have a big project, I think it's, so I never do it in PHP stand, but you could do one PHP stand neon file for each module, for example, and so that you can also run the test on a certain module only instead of doing it for the whole application all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you could. Yeah, in the. Oh no, I don't think I have it in there. So in the. Oh yeah, I have in the baseline. Yeah, exactly. So PHP stand has a parameter where you can define a neon file. Yeah, so you could basically also have different architecture tests that you want to run separately or in parallel if it's a really huge project and you have lots of tests.
Do you know why they moved to PHP stand?
So I was looking into the code because the traits were missing, and I want to understand why. Yeah, it seems that it's just very obvious because PHP stand has already all the capabilities to do this static code analysis. So that's why it makes sense to put it in there instead of writing or depending again on something else. And PHP stand is already really widely adopted, and on the other hand also easy to integrate. So that's why he decided to go there. So I saw that the code base really decreased when he moved to PHP stand. So now the code is really slim actually from PHP 18.
How many tests do you have now?
So let me think. So we have 9 or 8 cases and in classes, and in there like 5 or 4 tests. So quite a few already. But we stopped there because the baseline was missing. But now because it's in PHP stand, the baseline is existing. So therefore it's we are getting there actually to have almost all of the code now at least defined what the architecture should look like.
Is it slow?
Sorry?
Is it slow?
No, not yet. So I can see that every test of course adds some time to it, but right now it runs really less than 5 seconds for us.
Okay, so I have a project with like 4,000 classes. And PHP stand needs like 2 minutes for it. Only PHP stand without executing other stuff.
Yeah.
In parallel with 8 cores, I think.
Okay.
quite a while.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, so our project where we use it extensively, it's maybe like 20 or 15% of what you have from the amount of classes.
Okay.
So the point is a bit now that it's in PHP stand. If you use PHP stand now, you're coupled to it, and of course it takes a long time. So
what's your PHP stand level?
I think we're at 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So. But it's the new project. On the old project, no.
Just the basic. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, any other questions? Cool, then thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's a quick and just see the cool offices over there. Just follow the guy with the yellow pullover.
Try to be as colorful so that nobody misses it. It's not only on the walk in the big house, also in the upper part of this, which is like our little conference center or working space if any of your companies need it sometimes. Then feel free to ask us. So anybody who's interested or who wants to just follow me, maybe you can grab a beer or grab a lemonade. So that you have something to drink, so-called big deal.
Die ganze Lösung wird präsentieren als auch
alle, die interessiert sind, einfach mal
ist, dass wir tatsächlich PHP das heißt, wir streben 20% Internet gleich. Aber ich glaube, wenn man natürlich das verschiedene deswegen bin ich so und wir sind so dann wird die nicht wieder nochmal alles, was in die steht, ist so. Also was in der Pipeline steht, das hat halt Gewicht. Wenn du steht, ist halt deswegen finde ich das ganz gut, dass man alles okay versteht, was das ist.
Ich bin jetzt gesprochen, wir haben hier und das ist noch eigentlich darum, wie rechts haben, ob man sich als Team zu schön. Ja, das ist sehr gut. Ich glaube, das ist Spaß. Sonst so ist es Spaß. Fragen die was?
Also ich glaube, dass ich mal nur Getränke kommt, weil gerade bei Trades ist das.
Die haben mich ja eingestellt, dann will ich auch nicht rein, Getränke zu machen. Spielfeld
überhaupt schon mal so da ist auch das ist so. Deswegen ist es auch wichtig, dass du Songtext, wie man die verwendet. Das macht er ganz gut. Wie zum Beispiel Motive einführen. Du weißt einfach, dass keine deswegen. Oder auch keine anderes Beispiel. Oder es hat ja noch eine User-Objekte und dann wirklich ein Code reingebracht. Das heißt, da ist okay.
Das stimmt, wir kommen nur langsam in der Beispiel. Was zweckmäßig sein muss, sozusagen. Das ist wichtig. Das ist schwer zu testen. Und die Revision. Aber ich habe mich nie beschwert, weil wir Da finde ich, kann halt sowas helfen, selbst wenn man als Prüfer erlebt, dass man wirklich, aber man kann das was gut ist, was man halt nachvollziehbar ist, dass es halt oftmals Jetzt bei Erklärungen. Hier drin. Weil dann reden wir drüber. Ja, ihr habt es verstanden. Dann noch 10 Tage übrigens immer ist. Und sagen Sie wieder, das ist noch eine Frage. Genau. Und damit, finde ich, hat man die Möglichkeit, das noch zu stellen. Deswegen, danke für Spaß.
Ich mal kurz das E-Mail, dann würde ich mal bekommen. Offiziell
Mitglied der PHP User Group.
Ja, habe ich mich selber
seventhings.
für